Donald Trump's first term as President of the United States was anything but ordinary. From the moment he stepped into the Oval Office, his presidency was engulfed in a whirlwind of controversy, scandal, and relentless media scrutiny. His unconventional style and bombastic rhetoric, which had captivated millions during his campaign, continued to electrify his supporters, but also ignited fierce opposition across the political spectrum. Trump's presidency was characterized by a constant stream of investigations, legal challenges, and accusations of wrongdoing. These investigations, including the high-profile Mueller investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election, cast a long shadow over his administration. They fueled a sense of chaos and instability, leaving the nation deeply divided. Amidst this turmoil, Trump's policies, often implemented through executive orders, sparked intense debate. His decisions on immigration, healthcare, and foreign policy were met with both fervent praise and fierce condemnation. The political climate grew increasingly polarized, with both sides retreating further into their respective echo chambers. As Trump's first term progressed, the nation found itself grappling with a level of political division not seen in generations. His presidency, marked by both fervent support and vehement opposition, left an indelible mark on the American political landscape. It was a period of unprecedented turbulence, setting the stage for an even more tumultuous chapter to come. Donald Trump's presidency was besieged by a relentless barrage of investigations, legal challenges, and accusations of wrongdoing from its earliest days. From the moment he took office, Trump found himself at the center of a storm of controversy and scrutiny, with many questioning the legitimacy of his election and the integrity of his administration. These investigations, spearheaded by special counsel Robert Mueller, delved into allegations of Russian interference in the 2016 election and potential obstruction of justice by Trump himself. Mueller, a former FBI director, was tasked with uncovering the truth behind these serious accusations, and his investigation quickly became a focal point of national attention. The Mueller investigation, a constant presence throughout much of Trump's first term, cast a long shadow over his administration, fueling a sense of uncertainty and distrust. The media coverage was relentless, with daily updates and breaking news stories keeping the public on edge and the administration on the defensive. As the Mueller investigation unfolded, it uncovered a web of contacts between Trump campaign officials and Russian individuals linked to the Kremlin. These revelations raised serious questions about the extent of foreign influence in the 2016 election and the potential compromises within the Trump campaign. While the investigation did not establish a criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia, it did not exonerate Trump on the question of obstruction of justice. The report detailed numerous instances where Trump may have attempted to interfere with the investigation, leaving the door open for further legal and political battles. The report's findings, released to the public in a redacted form, further inflamed the partisan divide, with Democrats calling for impeachment and Republicans defending the president. The redactions only added to the controversy, with many demanding full transparency and others arguing that sensitive information needed to be protected. In December 2019, Trump faced a historic impeachment inquiry in the House of Representatives. The inquiry was a culmination of months of investigation and debate, with both sides preparing for a political showdown that would capture the nation's attention. The impeachment charges stemmed from allegations that he had solicited foreign interference in the 2020 election by pressuring Ukraine to investigate his political rival, Joe Biden. This accusation was based on a phone call between Trump and the Ukrainian president, which was later released to the public, sparking outrage and calls for accountability. The House of Representatives ultimately impeached Trump on charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, making him only the third U.S. president in history to be impeached. The vote was largely along party lines, reflecting the deep divisions within the country and the high stakes of the impeachment process. However, the Senate, then controlled by Republicans, acquitted Trump on both charges in February 2020. The trial in the Senate was marked by intense debate and partisan rhetoric, with each side presenting their case to the American people. The impeachment trial, a highly partisan affair, further deepened the political divisions in the country. Supporters of Trump saw the acquittal as a vindication, while his opponents viewed it as a failure of justice and a sign of the deep-rooted partisanship in Washington. Trump emerged from the ordeal emboldened, claiming complete exoneration and denouncing the impeachment as a witch hunt. He used the acquittal to rally his base, framing himself as a victim of political persecution and strengthening his position ahead of the 2020 election. Donald Trump's presidency was marked by a level of political polarization and societal division rarely witnessed in modern American history. The nation found itself increasingly split along ideological lines, with each side viewing the other with growing suspicion and hostility. His rhetoric, often inflammatory and divisive, served as a lightning rod, igniting passions on both sides of the political spectrum. This rhetoric was not just confined to speeches, but permeated through social media, interviews, and public appearances. While his supporters cheered his willingness to challenge the status quo and confront what they saw as a biased media establishment, they felt empowered by his direct and unfiltered communication style. His detractors were appalled by his rhetoric, which they viewed as racist, sexist, and xenophobic. They saw his words as a direct attack on the values of inclusivity and equality. Trump's use of social media, particularly Twitter, amplified his message and allowed him to bypass traditional media filters, speaking directly to his base. This direct line of communication was unprecedented and reshaped the political landscape. His tweets, often impulsive and provocative, kept the nation on edge, setting the tone for a news cycle dominated by outrage and controversy. Each tweet could spark a media frenzy, leading to endless debates and discussions. His attacks on his opponents, often personal and relentless, further inflamed tensions, making reasoned dialogue and compromise increasingly difficult. The political arena became a battleground where civility was often the first casualty. The political climate during Trump's presidency was characterized by a breakdown in civil discourse and a rise in intolerance. The ability to engage in constructive conversations seemed to diminish as the divide grew wider. Political opponents were no longer seen as merely having different views, but as enemies to be vanquished. This adversarial mindset permeated all levels of political engagement. This polarization extended beyond the political sphere, seeping into everyday life, straining relationships and dividing communities. Families found themselves at odds, friendships were tested, and workplaces became arenas of ideological conflict. The deep divisions exposed and exacerbated during Trump's presidency reflected a broader societal fragmentation. Economic disparities, cultural differences, and regional divides all contributed to the growing sense of disunity. They highlighted long-standing grievances, economic anxieties, and cultural anxieties that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. These issues were not new, but they were brought to the forefront in a way that demanded attention. Trump's ability to tap into these anxieties, to give voice to those who felt unheard and unseen, was central to his political success. He positioned himself as a champion for the disenfranchised, promising to restore their sense of importance and influence. However, his rhetoric and policies also served to deepen these divisions, leaving the nation deeply fractured and uncertain of its future. The legacy of his presidency is a testament to the power of words and the profound impact they can have on a nation's unity and discord. The date of January 6, 2021, will forever be etched in the annals of American history as a day of infamy. It was a day that tested the very foundations of American democracy and exposed the deep divisions within the nation. On that day, a mob of Donald Trump's supporters, fueled by his false claims of a stolen election, stormed the United States Capitol building in a brazen attempt to prevent the peaceful transfer of power to President-elect Joe Biden. The scenes were chaotic and unprecedented, with rioters scaling walls, breaking windows, and forcing their way into the heart of American governance. The images of that day, rioters breaking through barricades, smashing windows, and clashing with police, sent shockwaves across the nation and around the world. The violence and mayhem were broadcast live, leaving millions of Americans and international viewers in disbelief and fear. The insurrection at the Capitol was the culmination of months of escalating tensions and incendiary rhetoric. Trump's rallies had become a breeding ground for anger and conspiracy theories, with his supporters increasingly convinced that the election had been stolen from them. Trump, having lost the 2020 presidential election, refused to concede defeat, repeatedly making baseless claims of widespread voter fraud. His refusal to accept the results only fueled the anger and frustration of his supporters, who believed they were fighting to save their country. He urged his supporters to fight like hell to overturn the election results, culminating in a rally near the White House on January 6th, where he directed them to march to the Capitol. His words were a call to action, and his supporters responded with a fervor that would soon turn violent. The mob's assault on the Capitol resulted in multiple deaths and widespread damage to one of America's most sacred democratic institutions. The halls of Congress, usually a place of debate and decision-making, were turned into a battleground. It was a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy and the dangers of political violence. The physical damage to the Capitol was extensive, but the emotional and psychological impact on the nation was even greater. The nation watched in horror as the very heart of American democracy came under attack. The images of chaos and violence were a wake-up call, highlighting the urgent need for unity and healing. The aftermath of the January 6th insurrection was a time of national reckoning. Cleanup efforts began immediately, but the scars left by the attack would take much longer to heal. Vigils and gatherings were held across the country as people came together to mourn and reflect. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle condemned the violence, with some Republicans breaking ranks with Trump to hold him accountable for inciting the mob. The events of January 6th forced a moment of introspection and accountability within the political landscape. The House of Representatives, in a bipartisan vote, impeached Trump for incitement of insurrection, making him the only president in U.S. history to be impeached twice. This historic decision underscored the gravity of his actions and the need to uphold the principles of democracy and the rule of law.